Democratic State Representative Mihaela Plesa of Dallas, thank you so much and welcome back to Eye on Politics.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack.
You bet. So, your thoughts on the fact that the city of Plano, Highland Park, Farmers Branch, Irving, and now we're hearing about Addison potentially holding its own vote with regards to withdrawing from DART in the spring. Your thoughts?
Well, I am a little concerned, especially after the TxDOT report that just came out that said that Texas is way too car centric. And with the massive amount of people that are moving to our state daily, that we need to work on our public transit systems. Look, I'm also concerned because withdrawal isn't theoretical. It triggers an immediate shutdown of all DART services, GoLink, federally required paratransit at 12:01 a.m. the exact next day. So unless cities like Plano, Addison, and all these other cities that want to leave the DART system have a fully funded, ready to go, federally compliant transit system ready on day one, it's going to leave a lot of people without any options.
And so I know you came out and opposed certainly Plano leaving. You sent out a release about that. Have you had any conversations with any of the cities, well, particularly Plano, because that's in your district, since all of this has come to the fore?
Well, just to be clear, I wasn't against Plano leaving DART. What I am against is the city of Plano not having a federally compliant system ready to go the next day. My community has a lot of people that rely on paratransit. I have one of the largest IDD communities in North Texas in my district, and they rely on public transit. I also have multiple university campuses in my district. Those students need to get to class. Those people need to get to work. We have seniors that rely on these things. So I'm not against Plano leaving DART, but I am against us not having a mobility transit system in one of the fastest growing cities in the state. And, I don't just represent Plano. I also represent Richardson and Allen and the city of Dallas. In all these cities, we are working together. We move together. We are not insulary, right, within our region. And so when we shut down systems anywhere, we slow down traffic everywhere.
And so let me ask you, because the city of Plano offered a new proposal to DART, which DART is now looking at. And that proposal says, look, we'll keep all the rail service, which they have two. We will send back, we're not going to do most of the buses. We'll only do certain buses. And they said they would figure out a paratransit to comply with federal law, as you brought up. And in exchange for all that, they want basically half the money, half of their annual contribution back. What do you think of that latest plan?
Well, I want to say that I absolutely agree that Plano should negotiate for maximum value for every taxpayer dollar that produces real mobility. So I am in favor of Plano and all these cities getting top dollar for what they're putting in for their taxpayers. The fees that their taxpayers are paying. However, negotiating better terms is very different than just pulling the plug, and that's my concern. I'm happy that I've been in communications with my cities, and I'm happy that they really want to keep this issue local. They really want to find a middle ground for everybody. My concern is that you know, less money essentially will mean less services. And so Plano will be responsible for building, like we said, its own paratransit services. And that's one of the most expensive federally required services. So that's my top concern. I definitely believe that all these cities have the right to negotiate their maximum benefits. And that's what I intend to do in my position. But I do believe that all these things should be handled on the local level.
Do you think that DART has to share some of the blame that it even got to this point?
Well, I don't like to point fingers. I'll be honest. We really shouldn't be talking about blame. Right now, we should be talking about solutions and how we make sure that our seniors who need to get to downtown Plano have that option available to them, that our IDD communities who might have to learn new systems, might have to learn new patterns to get to where they need to be, have that information, that we're spending the time educating the community at what the other options are if we are going to leave Dart. What other systems has Plano been looking at? How much is that going to cost? Are we going to have the same options available to us, whether it's GoLink, paratransit, the rail services? And I'll be honest, rail services is very important, especially when we look at what's happening in North Collin County. We just saw that McKinney is going to become a commercial airport destination. And so we want to make sure that if you're living in downtown Plano or you're living in East Plano and you want to catch a flight out of McKinney Airport, that you can do that conveniently. Currently, with our Silver Line that just opened up, you can be from Plano to the DFW airport in 40 minutes for, less than $10. And those are the things, those are the options, those are the negotiations I hope that are being considered when we talk about changing up our regional transit system in Plano.
But the fact that it's gotten to this point where the cities have said, look, we've tried to negotiate with DART for years and they didn't have any luck. What do you say to that?
Well, that's also part of the reason why I believe that we shouldn't wait on the legislature to do these things, right? We on the legislature, we only meet for 140 days every 2 years. A lot of that, the slowing down of the system is because both the cities and Dart thought that maybe the legislature could fix this for them. And when you're waiting, for 2 years to have something done in the legislature, that also takes time. But I think that Plano made a decision. The people of Plano made a decision when they voted to go and be a part of Dart. This has come before the people of Plano before. They voted to stay in Dart. I mean, I think that it's very important that we continue conversations, but at the end of the day, it's the people that are going to suffer if we don't have something to replace Dart. I think the argument needs to also be, what are we replacing Dart with? What is this system? I mean, how much is it going to cost? And are we going to have the same options? Are we going to have the same accessibility as we currently do? I think that's the most important. And I'm really excited that Plano has formed Citizen Commission to specifically look at this issue. I don't have the list yet of who everybody was appointed to, who was appointed last night, but I'm really excited to hear what those people are going to be asking, the questions they're going to be asking, and the conversations they're going to be having, because they're the ones that are going to be impacted by this decision the most.
And you really want at the end of the day, so if Plano residents do end up voting on this, you want a plan B so that people can compare and contrast.
And I said that in my statement. I don't believe that we should be putting something on the ballot without the people of Plano understanding what they're really voting for. We understand that it's staying in Dart, but what are we voting for if we leave Dart? What is the ulterior options? And that's my number one concern. I just want to make sure that we are continuing to be in Plano the city of excellence. We want a lot of, we're building a lot of new things here in Plano, whether you're, in Legacy Park or Granite Park, or if you're, you know, a new Fortune 500 company that's moving and building their headquarters in Plano. Those employees want their employers to have options to get to work. And I say this again, it's really important for everybody to understand this doesn't just affect Plano or Addison or other cities that want to leave. This is going to affect all of North Texas, because the less public transit options there are in Plano or Addison, then that means that those people don't have the choice to get on a bus or get on a train, right? They have to use their car. So if you're sitting on 35 in traffic, it might be because a city has decided to pull the plug on DART. And those people that live in that city now have to use their car to get to wherever they need to go.
And last question on this topic is, this comes at a time when the area is looking at projected growth. We have 8.5 million people already. Here we are in 2025. And all the projections show by 2050, there will be 12.5 million people in our region, 4 extra million people in just 25 years. And so when you consider that fact, how important is it to get this right with DART or without DART?
It's critical. It's critical to the future of North Texas. And that's why I've been saying, this isn't necessarily about leaving DART. This is about building a regional mobility system that's going to fit the fastest growing state, I think, in the country, right? And that's why TxDOT's own plan says that Texas needs more transit options to support the things that we've talked about: growth, congestion, and really just keeping our state competitive. And that's what I'm going to continuously fight for. I definitely agree that we should be negotiating the best price, but we want to stay competitive, and public transit is a big factor of that. We want FIFA to bring the World Cup here. We want the Dallas Stars to come to Collin County, quote unquote, wink, wink, right? Um, but all that stuff is going to be reliant on, can people get to the places that they need to be conveniently, on a low cost. And those are the things that I'm going to be fighting for.
And my last question to you, different topic, is just about redistricting. This case that certainly started over the summer is now at the U.S. Supreme Court. How concerned are you that the new maps will be allowed at the end of the day by the Supreme Court to take effect for next year's midterm elections?
Well, I'm extremely concerned. I think that we all kind of expected stuff like this to happen. It could be kicked down the road to the higher courts. And so we sit right now in anticipation. But this is much bigger, I think, than this specific 2025 maps, or even the 2021 maps that are also being litigated in the courts, right? This is really about the Voting Rights Act and what the Supreme Court is going to rule on in whether or not we keep Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And if that's scrapped by the Texas Supreme Court, then I think we're all in trouble, because every state then can go in and redraw their maps, whether it's congressional lines, state house seats, state senate seats. And, that's going to have really adverse effects for all communities, not just, communities here in Texas. And so that's my number one concern. That's what I'm looking at. I think at the end of the day, whether or not the 2025 maps or the 2021 maps stay in play, we both know that both those maps were gerrymandered. We know that there's arguments to be made that we as lawmakers are going in there and picking our own voters, and that's wrong. That pulls away at the fabrics of our republic. And so that's what I'm going to be looking at. It's unfortunate that we see this happening in our country. My family fled from a communist country. We came here for freedom and the right for our vote to count. And so that's my number one concern, is what's going to happen with the Voting Rights Act.
And we may not even find out about the Voting Rights Act and what the U.S. Supreme Court does with that until June. But we do know in the meantime, though, that the Texas case needs to be settled because December 8th is just around the corner, and that's the filing deadline. Of course, the court could perhaps extend that. Do you think that this will come back to the legislature?
I hope not. We have so many other things that we need to focus on as lawmakers. Like I said to you before, 140 days every 2 years is not a lot of time to get a lot of work done. We need to focus on affordability. We need to focus on insurance costs, childcare costs, healthcare costs. Our state is still seeking, we just saw that we were expecting $3 billion in broadband money, and now we're only going to get $1.3 billion in broadband money. Our state needs broadband. Our state needs water infrastructure. We need to focus on our schools. And so those are the things that I think that we should be going and preparing to work on in the 90th legislative session. I don't think our constituents really care about these political power grabs that are being played out in our state capitals.
All right, we will leave it there. Democratic State Representative Mihaela Plesa of Dallas. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Good to see you.